So here's like a little history, origin brush up on different sounds that come from different origins of music throughout the past several, I guess maybe generations to arcs to eras to decades, I guess. And it seems a lot of people are getting it confused, like who's originated what. So I kind of want to do this one because I've been thinking about it for a while. Me being in music, you have to know, your history on different types of music. So here we begin. So okay, I know where I want to start at. I kind of don't know where I want to start at. So I want to go with the new sound, which is today's, which was the sound that you guys, hear today. So let's go with I guess country rap. Who actually brought that into the surface? Now, we know it's there, but it's not at its peak. I think it's just going to be a little fad that's not going to last long, like crunk rap, or which we will get into that, are known as crunk music, which is actually the originated sound of the South for its time being, rather than bass. So, who actually created, the sound for country rap? Some people will say, that not to get into the whole race card, but some folks could say it was Haystack. Then some could say it was Jelly Roll. Some could say it was Yellow Wolf. And I heard some people say, it was Eminem. It wasn't neither of them. The first person that combined both of the sounds was Nelly and Tim McGraw's song Over and Over Again. And we knew the struggles between both sides of that because we knew, country radio station wouldn't play it because it sounds a little bit too hip-hop. Hip-hop wouldn't play it because it sounded too country. A country music station wouldn't play it because there's a rapper in it. Now, you can look at that like the race ordeal and, all that junk if you want. Me, I kind of do think it is something to do with race with that. We knew BET played it on 106 The Park, but they only played it like once, maybe twice. So that we know for certain, for factors I remember. Now, that was the first sound that originated that from those two, Nelly and Tim McGraw. I guess as we move forward for that, I guess a couple years, I want to say, I graduated, I think in 08, probably late 07, we knew that one of the country singers came out with a song called Donk to Donk, and it had a hip-hop theme to it, but with a country, jivey, poppy vibe, and some people may say that originated the sound, but it was actually Tim McGraw and Nelly that originated that. The other new sound today, from drill music or skip drill to repeat drill. Anybody that listens to drill music, you know what I'm talking about. Drill music is the Chicago sound of Chirac, mainly Chirac sound, and they do, that is their sound. They did originate that, and I can see why they would get offensive to other people outside of that area that copies off them, because that's their sound. To me, they do own that, and I do have to agree with them. If you're not about the drill life or from there, you shouldn't do it. because they will take offense to that. And there's been, we know with them, there's a lot of killing going on, a lot of violence over there. If you guys pay attention to the YouTube channel, The War on Chirac by DJ Academics. Shout out to DJ Academics, man, I love his work. So, they originated drill sound. But what came from drill, which originated from that, from gangster rap from the 90s. Starting from NWA, then picked up where G-Unit, then after G-Unit left off, they took it over and made it, their sound is what we know as drill music, or the Chicago Chirac sound. The sounds that they're love to hear with is from that drum type machine gun sound, that do-do-do-do, something like that, that one is originated from the sound of a Tommy gun, which decided to work that in with the machine gun sounds of that just by beat alone. That's how that originated. What else? So I guess as we go on a little bit more. Now back a little bit. There are certain sounds that I like a lot. For example, let me see. How can I put it? It's like the Brooklyn sound in New York. You know how you hear Brooklyn's like rap. I don't know. Today's rap for Brooklyn, there's nothing coming out of it. It's silence. But if you go back and listen to anything from the 80s, from the 80s to the 90s sounds of hip-hop, from any Brooklyn artists, hip-hop originated from Brooklyn. The sound of Brooklyn, of hip-hop, originated from Africa. That's something a lot of people don't know about. I've seen that on a documentary somewhere. I can't remember if it was on BET or online. So that's how they originated their sound. If you listen to I don't know if anybody remembers the two groups. One of them was shortly around, and they didn't last long due to an airplane accident. Then one switched out with bands every 5 years or so. If you listen to the group La Bouche and their album Sweet Dream, followed up by their second album, which had they recorded plenty of songs for the first album. The leftover songs went on to the second album after their death, called SOS. And if you listen to the group Corona with their first album, Rhythm of the Night, which I have both of those on hand copies. Listen how those are, right? Like, you really listen to that sound, what they have in there. How can I put it? The sound originated, forget what you hear on like the TV versions of sounds from France and Paris. Their actually originated sounds are what you're hearing out of those two CDs that were inspired by that sound, with the mixture of the 70s funk music and then with a lot of jivey pop from the early 80s. That's how that sound originated. It all came from actually France and Paris. If you listen to Michael Jackson's Dangerous album, everyone thought he was switching to hip-hop. It has a hip-hop jive to it. It has a hip-hop rhythm to it. And it also has that France-Paris rhythm sound to it that I just described, followed up with the influences of Run DMC, with the lyrics, with that hip-hop vibe, because he was a fan of Run DMC. That's something a lot of people didn't know about. Michael was a fan of Run DMC. And also the sounds from the album Sweet Jeans by LaBouche and Rhythm of the Night by Corona. That's what inspired the sound all for the Dangerous album. A lot of people should know that. And then picked up where Slash will fill in the guitar play, because Slash is all into that album with his guitars. And because of Slash's guitar play is what's influenced the sound, the gothic mellow sound for Eversance, or Eviance. I call it Eversance because that's how I read it. His first album, Fallen, which is the soundtrack to the movie Daredevil from 2002 or 2003. So, do I think now, is there any influence for sounds from 2000 to 2005 that carried on 2006 now to going into 2016? I'm going to say no, really. I don't hear it. But there's a lot of influence in those sounds that I love, that I grew up listening to, that I bring into my music. So, yeah, it's not a very long video, but I did want to do this video for you guys. You know, the origins or the history of different sounds in music, and how, where they began, who originated what, and how would they still stand today? Well, that's a good question. To me, honestly, I know every generation has its era of arc of music that they like. You know, just like today's generation. Me, I'm almost 25 years old. I'm in my mid-20s. So, you can honestly imagine, you know, I really don't rock with today's music. Today's music for today's young people is Drake, Nicki, Mike Mill, Lil Wayne, Young Thug, and Rick Ross. Their sounds are originated or influenced by today's sound, which is a sound, honestly, it's on its own. I will give that props. It's a sound on its own. So, you know, that you know, that's theirs. Even though I may not listen to it, today's, you know, hip hop, that I do really not care for it. Maybe because I'm an older generation, but that's just me. But I do have to respect what is there, and I do respect that. Now, I may not like it, I may not be a fan of it, but I have to respect it. You know, every generation, you know, argues theirs was the best in music. You know, like, for example, the younger ones today, they may not like our music, what we listened to in the 90s and, you know, the 80s. But I'm pretty sure they respect it to know, hey man, if it wasn't for these in particular sounds, our music wouldn't be here today. Some get that, and some don't. It's like the 70s musics, you know, the 70s sounds were influenced by a lot of the 60s, especially to the late 50s at that. So, you know, you're asking me if I was to take the sounds from, well, we know, for example, the sounds from the 60s and 70s, and especially the 50s, they won't hold up for today's standards. I understand they may play that on a lot of the older folks radio stations, but if you were to take that and just put it out now, again, I don't think it would hold up. We know that the 90s and 80s are they're a fusion joint sound, pretty much now. But if you were to take 90s and 80s music, put them up against each other, it's going to be hard to beat one another. And if I had to go with one, I would have to go with the 90s, because I really love the 90s. Now, we'll take the 90s and we put it up against 2000 to 2005 sounds. honestly, I'm gonna have to go with the 2000s, with the early first 5 years of the 2000s, because we know there's so much. Don't get me wrong. There was more music out in the 90s with a lot of knockoff groups of different originated groups, or a lot of one-hit wonder artists, or a lot of one-hit songs, or who doesn't even know who the artist is. So you have a lot of music, more coming out then than you did in the early 2000s. But I'm gonna take the early 2000 sounds. I'm gonna put up against today's sounds. I'm gonna say the early 2005 sounds would be today's sounds, and then I would put that up with today's sounds against the 90s sounds, and I think the 90s would just honestly still beat it. But that's where I think. What do I think is still hold today? Yes, I mean, believe it or not, the sounds are still there in the movies. I mean, they're still gonna play songs from those eras, but regardless. Now some of the movies coming out now, we are hearing today's new music being played in it. Which movie? I want to say it's the new 007 movie. I think that's what it is. The new 007 movie has one of Rick Ross's songs in it, "The Devil's a Lie." I do believe that is the movie. But like I said, I just wanted to do this video, the history of sounds and music and where it originated from and who picked it up next. So, yeah.